It's senior night here in Centennial as the Cougars host the Blaine Bengals in this Tuesday night high school gymnastics meet here from Centennial High School. Hello, everybody. Alongside Heather Laszlo, I'm Nick Walsh, and we thank you for joining us here on North Metro 15 as the seniors get one last opportunity to show off their stuff here in this gymnastics meet, and it should be an entertaining night as we will have both junior varsity and varsity action here from Centennial. And Heather, always exciting for the seniors, their last opportunity to compete and perform here before the home fans, and there are some fans here tonight, so always an exciting time this last meet.
Yeah, these last meets are real big confident boosters for these gymnasts before sections. These meets are huge. Not to mention the seniors' last meets are really, really sentimental times for them. They've been flipping since they were little kids, and now they're graduating.
And you mentioned as well, obviously, last match before any sort of tournament action, so you want to be as sharp as you can here tonight before you go into that sort of competitive format. As we are just about set, the warm-up period is concluded.
That was a great half on, half off.
As that was Addison Janicek for Centennial. Our first action will be the varsity vault for Centennial and then the JV bars for Blaine. So we will alternate back and forth between Centennial. If Centennial's on the varsity, Blaine will be junior varsity. As we mentioned, Addison Janicek with her first jump from the vault. And meanwhile, for JV bars for Blaine, this is Anissa Chamberlain to our right, competing on the uneven bars. As our second varsity.
Very clean dismount.
This is Amelia Gannon on the varsity side of things from the vault, our first jump. And meanwhile, to our right, once again, the JV bars. This is Izzy Chesness competing on the JV bars for the Blaine Bengals. Meanwhile, Jenna Simso for Centennial, her first on the vault. Stuck the landing there. For somebody who has not watched a gymnastics meet before, or this is their first time tuning in, maybe what are we looking for on the vault right now from these varsity vaulters?
Big thing for the vault is that they have once they hit the vault with their hands, that they release with their shoulders and have a big bounce off, so that way they're able to complete their twists.
That's Amy Jess with her attempt. And then following her will be Audrey Noah, one of three seniors for this Centennial Cougar squad. Meanwhile, we have Isabella Hefner on the JV bars for Blaine. Audrey Noah.
That was a great landing for Centennial.
Now, typically, we talked about this off air, but typically in gymnastics, everybody starts with a 10 and works their way down, but not quite so in high school. We just saw Audrey there. She had an 865 shown to start. So not everybody works from a 10-point scale in high school, correct?
Yep, that is correct. Whichever skills they decide to compete each week determines their start value, and they go down from there. Another beautiful landing.
This is Amy Jess coming up next. I think we're a little bit out of order to start. Jenna Simso was the one that just jumped. And now this is Amy Jess, and it looks like 8.35 is the starting area for Amy. Is it more about the dismount that we're watching? Is it what are the key factors in the vault?
So what they're watching when they're judging vault is how much height they get off of the vault, as well as how they're landing their dismount, keeping their legs together, toes pointed. Even having your head in between your arms and not like your head sticking out. That's another big thing they look for on vault.
This is another attempt for Amy Jess.
So you saw a little bit of an arm bend on the vault, so that's something that they would be watching for. But otherwise, it was beautiful execution.
And now Audrey Noah will take her attempts here. Centennial on the varsity vault.
Audrey Noah is one of our seniors and captains tonight.
After this, it'll be Centennial with the JV vault and then the varsity bars for Blaine. So we will switch over to the bars with a little more focus after this.
That was a beautiful Yurchenko she just did. That's a really big skill for high school gymnastics.
As she takes her first jump, the senior captain, Audrey Noah. Obviously a lot more technical there than what we've seen some of the other jumpers there.
Got a nice 9 for a score.
9.10, the score over to our right. And we will see Audrey jump again. And this is what we were talking about before, where not everybody's exactly on the same plane, so not everybody starts from the same level to start.
Yeah, this girl is definitely getting a 10 start.
Second attempt from the vault for Audrey Noah.
You always got to have that mental prep before you go.
I was going to ask if that was a stretch or just mental preparedness.
Mental preparedness for sure. Beautiful landing.
And so 2 jumps for Audrey Noah. And with that, that will conclude the varsity vault portion for Centennial.
Yeah, that might be the highest level vault we see here tonight. Yurchenko is huge.
We see a 9.2 and a 9.15 on those 2 jumps for Audrey Noah. As we'll take a quick break, we'll be back with the varsity bars on the Blaine end of things when we come back. Centennial and Blaine here on North Metro 15. Back here at Centennial High School, Blaine and Centennial here in this gymnastics meet. Nick Walsh along with Heather Laszlo, and we will switch our primary attention to the varsity vault, and this will be Blaine competing in the varsity vault. And walk us through this particular segment of the evening. Check that, varsity bars, I'm sorry.
Yeah, bars is one of those events where every skill has to flow together. So if you make a mistake right in the beginning, you are going to continue to try and recover from that the whole rest of your sequence. So it's really important that they start strong and finish strong.
As we are just about set, we are watching the junior varsity vault for Centennial now. Nice. On the far side is Ruth Gale, the first jumper.
Nice flyaway for Blaine.
I think we are still in the warm-up period for the varsity bars here, so we have not yet started the official. It'll be Peyton Block to start things off for Blaine, followed by Isabella Torgerson, Destiny Torgerson, Jennifer Riley, and Grace Gerard for the varsity bars for Blaine. And on the far side for the JV vault for Centennial, Ruth Gale, followed by Ava Garretts, Ashlyn McCoskey, Anna Phillips, McKenna Keene, Kylie Nelson, Emily Anderson, and Addie Border. So 8 vaulters for Centennial. And of course, on the varsity side, you can have a maximum of 5 competitors for each event. As the Blaine competitors just waiting for the final seconds to tick off before we're set to go, and it looks like we're ready to go as Peyton Block get things going here on the bars.
This is a very clean gymnast here, keeping her legs together, toes pointed. And a great landing. Beautiful flyaway.
And so Block is finished up, and now Isabella Torgerson will be the next competitor for Blaine. And you see Peyton Block after her run on the bars. As Torgerson starts from a point of 6.9, Peyton Block was 6.35 to start.
A little pause there, that'll be a deduction. Beautiful cast handstand.
Stuck the landing there for Torgerson. So what are the specifics that we're looking for, the differences between the different competitors here in this particular event?
The difference is, well, they all get to choose their own routine. So some of them you will be seeing some really high-skilled releases I was watching during warm-up. And some of them are doing more basic things, but a lot cleaner. So it's all up to the gymnast and what their skill level is and comfortability performing each skill and how they want to execute it.
As Destiny Torgerson, you can, just as you mentioned, she comes from a different angle and starts with the high bar and a more advanced degree of difficulty, 7.6.
Huge release move right there. Very clean giants and a stuck dismount. That was a perfect routine if I ever seen one.
Very good for Destiny Torgerson, one of the 3 seniors for this Blaine Bengal team, senior captains, along with Jennifer Riley, who we'll see next, and then Grace Gerard, who will follow Riley. Three competitors down for Blaine, two left to go here with the varsity bars.
It's interesting that they make them warm up in their masks, but they get to take them off when they compete.
I have to guess that has to do with maybe the length of time they warm up versus compete, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, that could be it.
As we're watching Jennifer Riley now. Highest degree of difficulty here, 8.15.
That was a beautiful routine. She had most of her hard skills on the low bar and finished very clean with a full twist.
When you're competing on the bars, what's the most difficult portion of these routines? Is it
anytime
the transfer or where is it?
Anytime they're doing a release from low to high bar or high to low bar, that's definitely a challenge. And giants, when they're swinging in handstand around the bar, that's another hard one for them.
As we await Grace Gerard, the final competitor for Blaine here for the varsity portion of the bars. It looks like 8.90 the degree of difficulty here coming up.
Looks like we might have a judging dispute.
And walk us through that now. You have two judges here for the varsity side of things. We've got one judge for the junior varsity. So in a dispute, what are they discussing here?
They're going over making sure they each have the same skills written down. They're looking at the deductions they each took. If one judge is scored completely off of the other one, they have to decide which score they are going to use. When normally, if their scores are close to each other, they would just meet in the middle.
And do they have to concur on all these particular scoring decisions? Is that the viewpoint?
So they don't have to discuss every single time, only if there's a big difference between their scores. Because ideally they do see the same thing, just sometimes one may not have seen what the other saw. And they need to come to a conclusion on who saw correctly.
As that was Addie Border for the JV vault portion for Centennial. That's the final vaulter of the evening for Centennial, as we've done varsity and junior varsity for both of those. And so we still have a single competitor here for the Blaine on the bars, but the judges continue to deliberate. And so we will take a break. We'll be back with more from Centennial, Blaine Centennial here on North Metro 15. Back here again at Centennial High School as we get set for the third rotation. We will have junior varsity bars for Centennial and varsity vault for Blaine. As Michaela Johnson will start things off for Blaine on the varsity side of things, followed by Destiny Torgerson, Peyton Block, Grace Gerard, and Jennifer Riley. Meanwhile, for the junior varsity bars for Centennial, it'll be Ruth Gale, followed by Anna Phillips, Ava Garretts, Emily Anderson, Addison Janicek, Elizabeth Slipka, Ashlyn McCoskey, and Addie Border. As we are set to go And it'll be Michaela Johnson to start things off for Blaine. Just awaiting the go-ahead from the officials, and now we are ready to go. So Gale on our left, Johnson on the right on your screen.
Nice landing.
And so Johnson will have one more attempt from the vault. As you saw, Gale finish up over on the bars as well.
8.5 for that first vault. 8.05.
And a little bit of a slip on the landing for Johnson on her second landing.
Yep, little fumble, but the best part about vault is that only one of them counts, so the lowest score gets dropped anyways.
As Anna Phillips now on the bars for Centennial. And meanwhile, you see Destiny Torgerson getting set for her first attempt on the vault.
Beautiful bar routine.
Adjusting the area around the vault.
It is really
mounting area.
important. Each gymnast has their own board setting. They know how many steps they take before they hit that board, and it is important. If those numbers are off, it could be very dangerous.
As Ava Garrett's now on the bars for Centennial. Torgerson will have one more attempt from the vault. It's landing there by Garrett. First jump was 8.4, looks like, for Torgerson.
It's a nice Yurchenko half.
And now Emily Anderson on the bars. So Torgerson has taken her 2 jumps, and now we will have Peyton Block or Blaine coming up here momentarily for Blaine. Smooth landing there for Anderson. First jump for Block.
Did a nice round off on full off.
So one more attempt at the block. Or the vault, I should say, for Block. And now, meanwhile, Addison Janicek for Centennial Cougars on the bars. Second jump for Block.
Nice stick on bars.
I'm very excited about it, too. 8.6 was the score on the second vault attempt for Block. So improved just a little bit, had an 8.5 on the first, and now an 8.6 on the second. As Grace Gerard will attempt her first from the vault. Came through a little far, but what do you think of that one?
That one was beautiful. It was about the same as the first, except she added one more twist to it.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth Slipka Getting set to go on the bars for Centennial.
Nice switch kip on the bars.
And the second for Gerard.
Very excited
happy.
about that vault.
First was an 8.6. We'll wait for the score. Is Slipka very happy with her dismount as well. .10 on that second attempt at the vault for Gerard.
That's the highest we've seen yet for Blaine's vault.
And then Jennifer Riley set to go. As Ashlyn McCoskey with her attempt from the bars. And the first jump for Riley.
It's a beautiful souk. Took a little step on the landing, but her height was great.
And McCoskey finishing up on the uneven bars, leaving us one remaining competitor for the JV bars portion. That'll be Addie Border. As Riley getting set for her second attempt from the vault. Final competitors for either side in this portion of the competition. Jennifer Riley.
All right.
Stuck the landing.
Perfect landing. Over on the bar side, we did see a big release move too.
And so, waiting on the scoring for Gerard, her second attempt. And we have a 9.0 and an 8.9, the two scores. And with that, we have completed our third of 8 competitions in the rotation. As we will come back in a few minutes, Centennial from the varsity bars and Blaine from the JV vault when we return here with girls gymnastics here on North Metro 15. Back here once again, Nick Walsh, Heather Laszlo here from Centennial High School, Blaine and Centennial. And coming up next, we've got Centennial with the varsity bars portion and Blaine with the JV vault portion. So for the Blaine Bengals on the JV vault, it'll be Isabella Torgerson, Anissa Chamberlain, Izzy Chesness, and then Brooklyn Young, only 4 vaulters. And then meanwhile for Centennial, it'll be McKenna Keene competing first, followed by Kylie Nelson, Jenna Simpso, Amelia Gannon, and Audrey Noah on the bars.
On bars, we are starting and finishing with the senior tonight.
Of course, senior night tonight, as you mentioned, McKenna Keene, Audrey Noah, and also Sydney Nelson, who is injured and unable to compete tonight, the 3 seniors. And that was McKenna Keene competing. And meanwhile, Isabella Torgerson taking her first jump as well from the vault. McKenna awaits her score. Meanwhile, Isabella Torgerson awaits her second attempt at the vault.
Torgerson had a very pretty gymnastics run.
Got a 6.8 and it's like 6.95 was the score for Keene. And now Kylie Nelson competing.
Nelson's got a good flow to her routine. And a perfect landing.
Meanwhile, Anissa Chamberlain on the vault. Anything standing out for you so far from what we've seen tonight?
I would say Centennial's bars are really, really outstanding.
As Jenna Simpso about to compete here on the varsity bars.
Yeah, as I was talking about earlier, bars is all about the flow. That first skill matters for the last skill, and they seem to got it.
Izzy Chestnut now on the JV vault. Meanwhile, Jenna Simpso about to attempt the uneven bars.
Dancing around her bars, all excited.
And set to go.
.4 for Nelson. She lost her flow a little bit. And she's got very clean posture. Three giants to a layout and a perfect stick. These girls got the landing.
And meanwhile, Anissa Chamberlain competing with her two vaults. And now this is Izzy Chestnut with her first jump. As Jenna Simpso waits for her score, and now Amelia Gannon set to take on the bars. With her second jump.
Did a nice round off over the vault.
7.4 and a 7.8 for Simpso on her bars performance.
Nice release move. Almost lost it, but saved it. And a beautiful layout landing.
As you mentioned, she did lose her hand on that one, but was able to maintain enough control to stay with it. As Brooklyn Young with her first attempt from the vault. Now Audrey Noah with her competition with the bars coming up. Final varsity competitor for Centennial. And meanwhile, Young will take her final attempt from the vault. Once we've completed these two competitions, we'll move to the beam and the floor exercise for these two squads. There's Young with her second attempt. Looks like we're going to have some conversation here between the judges again.
Probably
Heather.
because of the hand wobble. one might be trying to count it as a fall and the other one might not be. It'll be up to them, though, ultimately.
Looks like the deliberations have come to a close, and so we will see what the score is. How does that affect the next competitor? Is they have to wait a little bit?
It's
does
nerving.
that throw you off?
It's nerving. Because you're all ready and mentally prepared to do your routine. And
looks like the scoring came out with an 8 and a 7.8 for the scoring for Gannon. And now here's Audrey Noah. Long hold.
she did a beautiful handstand, but then touched her toes on the low bar. It will count as a fall, but otherwise very, very clean routine. Perfect landing.
And so Noah will wait for her score. But overall, still impressed with the bars for Centennial. You talked about that to start. And so while we wait for that, we will have a little bit longer break once again as they do clean and sanitize all of the different surfaces before we go to the next. And our next rotation will be Centennial on the varsity beam. We haven't seen the beam yet. And the JV floor exercise for Blaine. So they do all the vault and all the bars first, and then we'll move on to the beam and the floor exercise. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more from Centennial Cougar. We are back here at Centennial High School, and you're seeing Ashlyn McCoskey, the first competitor on the varsity beam for Centennial. And on the JV floor exercise, Anissa Chamberlain will be the first competitor on the floor.
A little bit of a bobble. They are allowed a few moments to gather themselves if they fall. Beautiful round off back tuck dismount. She finished well with the bobble.
As Chamberlain waits for the floor, talk about the challenges with the beam that we, what's different about this particular event?
It's a lot of mental right there. If you are scared before you do your move, you're just going to fall off of it, even if it's muscle memory and you know it. So it's all about being confident, muscle memory, in multiple repetitions.
Meanwhile, Amelia Gannon preparing for the beam for Centennial. We still wait for Chamberlain to start on the floor, but here's Gannon and immediately coming down.
Would have been a nice, hard, skilled mount. However, in gymnastics, if you fall on the skill, you do lose the skill in your count. Back walkover, back handspring, half. That was beautiful. Nice finish.
Amelia Gannon for Centennial. And Chamberlain going with popular NFL theme on a different channel from North Metro TV. That is not the North Metro TV football theme.
Nice 3 skilled sequence on floor. Showing off her flexibility.
toe touch to the head there to finish up.
Very beautiful.
As Jenna Simso, meanwhile, set for her attempt on the beam.
Looks like the judges are still deliberating on beam.
And Gannon will receive an 8.2 and a 7.95. Jenna Simso now.
Nice flutter kick. You can tell this girl has some dance behind her. Nice back top.
Meanwhile, Izzy Chestnut on the JV floor for Blaine.
Jenna is dancing to the floor routine music, which definitely makes it easier.
And stuck the landing.
You don't see them doing one-handed skills often. It's cool that she did 2 in a row.
You talked about how the beam particularly is a mental practice, and so is that, you know, you mentioned the music, and you mentioned that she seems to maybe have a dance component to her as well. Is quiet where you want it when you're trying to do these mental capacities, or do you like some noise, the cheering? What's the? I'm sure it's everybody's a little different, but what are your takes on that?
When you're on beam, the floor routine music is very helpful. It helps you keep a flow, keep a rhythm. It's definitely helpful on beam. On the other events, usually in my case, I would just completely tune out the noise. I wouldn't even hear the music.
As Izzy Chestnut has completed her floor exercise. As Addie Border waiting to take a run on the beam, and meanwhile Isabel Hefner waiting to start the floor exercise. There are 2 other competitors for Blaine. It'll be Peyton Block and then Brooklyn Young for Blaine. And the judges still deliberating for Jenna Simso's score. So, meanwhile, this is Isabel Hefner on the floor exercise.
So on floor, they are allowed to take 1 step back when they're doing a back pass, and they're allowed to take 1 step forward if they're doing a front pass. So that's huge for when they're landing.
And Addie Border has started on the beam. Looks like Simso ended up with an 8.7 and an 8.65, so 8.6. Seems like for Border, this is a different style a little bit than we've seen from the previous.
Yeah. She's put some spunk into it. Looks like we're about to see a hard skill here. Beautiful.
Backflip.
Like we were just talking about, it's all about that mental prep. She needed that moment. Nice switch leap wolf jump.
Peyton Block, meanwhile, on the floor. And the landing there for Addie Border.
See, that step back is perfectly allowed. That means she stuck her landing.
And our final competitor on the varsity side of the beam for Centennial, Audrey Noah, beginning her routine.
Nice, clean, full turn. That is a required skill. Beautiful.
Handstand backflip.
So anytime they jump into a turn like that, that is a higher skill than if they just did a jump straight on. She makes those jumps look easy, but they're not. Beautiful fall into a stick landing.
All right, and so that will conclude rotation number 5 as Blaine has completed the JV floor. Centennial, the varsity beam, and so coming up next, we'll have the junior varsity beam for Centennial, the varsity floor exercises for Blaine. We'll take another break. We'll come back with more from Centennial as the Cougars taking on the Bengals here on North Metro 15. And back here once again at Centennial High School as Blaine at Centennial continues here with junior varsity beam for Centennial and varsity floor exercise for Blaine. As we are underway here is Brooklyn Young, the first competitor for Blaine on the varsity floor.
Floor is a great event because you really get to see the gymnast's personality. They get to choose a lot of their skills, a lot of their dance moves, and they really get to just have fun with it.
5 competitors for Blaine: Brooklyn Young, Michaela Johnson, Jennifer Riley, Destiny Torgerson, and Grace Gerard as we see Brooklyn Young here.
Beautiful layout on floor.
And meanwhile, Ruth Gale, our first competitor on the JV side for Centennial.
Nice double back handspring back tuck. She's got very clean posture.
And meanwhile, this is Anna Phillips on the beams for Centennial's junior varsity. And meanwhile, Michaela Johnson set to be the second competitor on the floor as we wait the judges' rulings.
So on beam, because she stepped with her foot when she wobbled, she did lose the connection there. So it was just 2 separate cartwheels instead of a connected move. But she stuck the landing.
Scorers still deliberating on the Brooklyn Young floor performance. A 7.5 and a 7.8 for Brooklyn Young. As we move now to Michaela Johnson for Blaine on the varsity floor exercise. And Emily Anderson on the junior varsity side for the beam.
Beautiful landing. She's really executing her dance moves to their fullest ability, which is awesome. Makes for an exciting floor routine. Nice aerial.
And as you mentioned before, the personality coming out in the floor exercise for Blaine.
Very clean.
As Johnson finishes up. And meanwhile, Emily Anderson set to embark on the beam. .1 and a 7.15 on the Michaela Johnson floor exercise on the varsity side. And Emily Anderson now on the bar. As Jennifer Riley on the floor for Blaine.
Beautiful full. You can tell this girl has had extensive training in this sport. She is very clean, very poised about her execution. Front handspring layout. Her third tumbling pass. Round off full, stuck the landing.
And Jennifer Riley.
Looks like we have McKenna Keene on beam, one of our seniors tonight. So typically there's two kinds of gymnasts, power gymnasts and artistic gymnasts. So the powers like the vault and the bars a lot, and the artistic ones typically like floor and beam.
Riley an 8.3 and an 8.45 on the varsity side of things is Destiny Torgerson on the floor. And awaiting Elizabeth Slipka for the beam.
Beautiful 1.5. I think that's the highest twist we've seen today.
When scoring on the floor, is it more about the quantity or the quality?
Quality.
Quality.
But the more exciting you make the routine, the better it is your score for sure. If you distract the judges with your great dance moves, they might forgive a wobble here and there.
As Slipka on the beam now.
Another stuck landing on floor.
And Destiny Torgerson.
Like I said earlier, those jumpings with twists are hard on the beam. And
Elizabeth Slipka. Yes, we wait the Torgerson score, an 8.6 and an 8.55, so very good numbers for Destiny Torgerson. As Kylie Nelson next on the beam for Centennial. And now Grace Gerard, our final competitor on the floor on the varsity side for Blaine.
One and a half to a front pike. That is a huge move here tonight. This is the girl to beat on floor for sure.
This performance maybe a little more grace and flow than some of the other ones we've seen.
You can really see her personality with her facial expressions. You can tell she loves her routine.
Yes, Grace Gerard. And our final competitor on the beam will be Addison Janisic for Centennial. She's preparing.
One thing on beam is if your arms are up and straight, it helps keep your body straight so you land a lot easier. So if they drop an arm, it's expected that they'll wobble.
Come on, Addie. You got it, AJ. Let's go. Come on, Addie.
That front roll is actually a lot harder than she makes it look.
And you could tell by her facial expression how pleased she was to
And how
stick
excited her teammates were. It's a hard skill. I would argue it's harder than a backflip.
Man.
Beautiful full.
Addison Janisic to finish things up here for Centennial. As we move to our final two rotations, we'll have some cleaning here, and we'll be back with more from Centennial. Underway here for the JV floor exercise for Centennial and the varsity beam for Blaine. As we're seeing Georgia Willett here for Centennial and awaiting Isabella Torgerson for the varsity beam. You see Isabella there. As we're taking a look as well, there's Georgia Willett on the floor exercise. We'll get you some scores here shortly. as the team scores for Centennial so far. For Centennial on the bars, it was 31.90. 35 on the beam for Centennial, and 34.90 for the vault. And for Blaine, 31.675 for the bars, 35.15 in the vault, and 33.925 for the floor.
Oh, a little bobble on beam. Nothing major.
This is Allison Harville now for Centennial. Second of 8 competitors in the JV floor.
You can tell on floor she's having fun with her routine.
Absolutely. There's Michaela Johnson on the beam.
Any mount with the springboard is a higher difficulty. Nice 3/4 jump there. Cartwheel round off. Even though she fell, she made the connection. The skill did count.
And now Anna Garrett, check that, Ava Garrett's for Centennial.
And a very clean landing. We got Grace on beam.
On the junior varsity side of things, Centennial scored a 27.3 on the bars, 33.4 on the beam, and a 33.8 on the vault. For Blaine, a 19.65 on the bars, 30.3 on the vault, and a 28.05 on the floor.
Just had a big layout on floor.
This is Emily Anderson for Centennial, and Grace Gerard on the beam.
And a beautiful full twisting dismount on beam with a stuck landing.
talked about the personality that comes out in these floor exercises, and I can't help but kind of pick up the different variations with the music that comes along with it. How much goes into the? Is it the song that gets picked first, and then the design of the
It is
routine?
absolutely the song first. The gymnast picks the song. They usually pick out a lot of their own moves and dance moves, actually, which is why we see such a big fluctuation between them.
This will be Amy Jess for Centennial getting set for her floor exercise. And Destiny Torgerson on the beams for Blaine. Using the vault.
You can tell she's our dancer on beam. Beautiful connection. We got big expressions on floor right now. Beautiful half twist.
And sticking the landing on the beam.
Centennial does seem to be sticking most of their floor passes.
Really crisp on the floor here from Amy Jess. Looks like there's some deliberation going on with the judges on the varsity beam side. As Ashlyn McCoskey getting ready for her floor routine for Centennial. And Jennifer Riley now for Blaine on the beam.
She has been one of our stars tonight. Is a beautiful move right there.
Nearly lost it there, but held it.
A little wobble. Beautiful dismount.
We still have two Centennial floor members coming up after this. By my math, Blaine, after 3 varsity events, leading Centennial by a score of 109.75 to 100.05. So Centennial needs to make up some ground in these final 2 events. We do not have the varsity beam. Obviously, or check that, we don't have the varsity floor exercise for Centennial, nor do we have the varsity beam for Blaine yet. So
JV floor for Centennial is going to bring their score up, I believe. They did very well on their landings.
This is McKenna Keene now for Centennial. Amelia Gannon will follow.
Little bit of a step there. She has beautiful execution on that dance moves.
One of our 3 seniors for Centennial tonight, McKenna Keene, with the floor exercise. And now the final competitor of the JV floor for Centennial is Amelia Gannon. As you see Keene again. And set to go with Amelia Gannon. Very dramatic song here for Gannon.
Beautiful 1.5 twist. She's pulling out the big moves tonight. Oh, went out of bounds a little bit. That will be a deduction. But at least she had power. Nice front.
And finishes with some elegance there at the end. As Amelia Gannon finishes up, and that will conclude the JV portion of the floor for Centennial. The varsity beam complete as well for Blaine. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll have the final rotation of the evening. The varsity floor for Centennial, JV beams for Blaine. We'll be back after this here on North Metro 15. As we're back here, our final events of the evening, the varsity floor exercise for Centennial and the JV beam for Blaine, as we're looking at Kylie Nelson for Centennial. And
just barely stayed in bounds there.
And meanwhile, Anissa Chamberlain on the junior varsity beams for Blaine.
Nelson's got great flexibility, as we saw in her last jump. Nice stuck landing.
Let's see, she's got some team participation in the background.
Very exciting. This must be the fan favorite routine.
Yes, Chamberlain completes on the JV beam.
Nice stuck full twist. Beautiful.
And so Nelson completes, and now Izzy Chestnut on the JV beam for the Blaine Bengals. Meanwhile, Chestnut on the beam. Jenna Simpso getting ready for the floor exercise for Centennial.
Little fall there.
Kylie Nelson receiving an 8.05 and a 7.90, so right around an 8 for the average for Kylie Nelson. And now Jenna Simpso.
Nice clean stick on beam.
Izzy Chestnut finishing up.
Jenna Simpso is one of our dancers. This should be a fun floor routine. She's executing her dance very, very well. Beautiful front layout. That move down to the ground is actually called a waterfall.
Meanwhile, Isabel Hefner on the bars on the JV side.
Nice half twist.
Really clean, efficient performance
Very
there by
clean.
Simpso.
That's going to be a good score for sure.
And pleased with that. Smiles all around. And off for Hefner meanwhile. And now Addison Janicek for the Centennial Cougars getting set for her floor exercise. Got an 8 and an 8.2, so an average of 8.1 for Jenna Simpso. Well, now here's Janicek.
A lot of energy in this routine.
Very high octane song that comes with it.
Wow. Standing front full twist. That's a hard move right there. Showing off her flexibility.
Meanwhile, Peyton Block for Blaine on the JV beams.
She is excited to be competing tonight. Double twist, that'll be bonus points. A very nice floor routine. Meanwhile, a nice round off on the beam.
Peyton Block finishing up. And we'll have one more competitor for the JV beams. That'll be Brooklyn Young for Blaine. And meanwhile, Addie Border getting set for Centennial on the floor exercise. Brooklyn Young onto the beam, and Addie Border beginning the floor.
Beautiful full twist on the floor. Nice big move to begin with. You can tell she's another dancer. Front layout, front pike, beautiful landing. Nice back full, clean landing. Beautiful.
Another really crisp and clean performance there by Centennial and Addie Border.
This will be where they make up those points they're behind.
And we come now to the final competitor of the evening for this and for all the events, and it's one of our seniors. This is Audrey Noah.
She's been one to watch all night. This should be a good routine.
8.7 and an 8.9, so an average of 8.8 for Addie Border. And now Audrey Noah to finish things off here tonight.
Nice double twist. Huge 1.5 to front pike. Front layout. You can tell she's got a lot of power.
Kind of a mood twist here between the two songs. A little more elegance the first and a little more drama here.
Nice full twist. Beautiful routine. Couldn't have ended it better.
And the conclusion there for Audrey Noah, really smooth performance there overall, but still waiting on the judges here. 9.10 and a 9.15. So big scores to finish off here with Audrey Noah. And with that, the coach is coming to check out the final scores. As we will wrap things up for our end of things. But before we do, Kether Laszlo, just some general thoughts on tonight's contest overall.
This was a great meet to watch. Both teams were very, very evenly matched, and this is something that should have built all of their confidence going into sections. They all should be doing very, very well coming up here.
And the Centennial squad finishing up, of course, senior night, so their final time competing in the regular season as a team here. So as we wait the final scores, we'll wrap things up here. And for the rest of the fine crew here for North Metro TV and for Kether Laszlo, I'm Nick Walsh signing off. Don't forget, stay positive and test negative. And thanks for listening. So long, everybody.